What's up, everybody? Mr. OG Games here, and today I've got something a little different for you guys. I actually love to write short stories and other things like that, and I figured I would write a short story based on the game and share it with you guys. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I also am interested in hearing any stories you may have. If you want to share with me, I can put them in a video as well. Either real in-game stories that take place, pictures, videos are welcome. Or if you guys are creative and come up with an interesting story, I'd love to share it as well. I figured I'd do one of these time to time because it breaks the grind from the day-to-day War and Order, and it also gives you something a little different to listen to. So here it is. Check it out, and I won't come back to you at the end. So if you guys like this type of video, give the thumbs button a tickle. I'd really appreciate it. And now, here is the short story, Reinforcements. The moon's light shone down and illuminated countless rows of troops, standing firmly in position, waiting the command. After what seemed like eternity, the horn sounded and the countless rows of troops started their march towards the wall. High atop the wall stood archers. Behind the gates, infantry and cavalry stood ready. Mages readied themselves, and Gomes waited the command to push out of the gate and meet the enemy. As the countless rows of troops neared the wall, they stopped just outside of the archers' range. Castle scouts returned to show not only one army was advancing, but several. 80 or more lords now led their armies to meet the already countless rows of troops. The castle walls were protected by only one lord's army, and no sign of reinforcements could be seen. Looking down at the masses, both human and orcs could be seen. Rows now in formation. Castle Gomes exited the gate and were followed by infantry, cavalry, archers, and mages. This would be their final stand to protect their lord. Heavily outnumbered, they waited for the impending strike. The order was given, and the countless waves of troops advanced with great speed. Gomes stood their ground as the enemy drew closer and closer. Just as the great mass of humans and orc alike hit, the castle was shrouded by a great shield. The enemy hit the shield hard, but to no avail. They were pushed back. Row by row, hit and bounced off the mighty shield. With the last lord finally about to hit, the great shield lifted. The enemy troops rushed against the Golem wall, with infantry steadily behind. Once the lord entered, he knew he had made a grave mistake. The shield was now set again, and their fate was met. Castle wall archers rained down arrows, mages attacked with great force. The lord's army was dwarfed by the castle force. Enemy infantry fell and exposed the mighty mages. Within minutes, the army was no more, and with only several hundred survivors, they fled the castle walls back to their homeland. Songs of rejoice filled the air as the castle was protected against the many foe that stormed her. But it was far from over. Her shield could only hold for 3 days, and still no signs of reinforcements could be seen. The castle, seemingly untouched, could only hope that once the shield lifted, her walls would be ready to face what lies to come. As hours passed, the wounded were cared for, the dead were mourned. New troops were being trained to join in protecting their lord. After many hours had passed, Resources began to dwindle down. No further protection could be created. The Lord opened his vault and steadily used the castle's gems to keep advancing the training and city growth. But they too were almost depleted. On the morning of the third day, wagons could be seen in the distance, slowly approaching the castle. The gates opened and the wagons entered. They carried vast riches of resources so desperately needed. Wagon after wagon entered and left the castle. Building and training now continued. Messages from lords across the Alliance came and promises of reinforcements were given. With the castle hall being recently upgraded, she welcomed 900,000 reinforcements later that day. 8 hours remained on the Great Shield, and with reinforcements now here, morale seemed much higher amongst the troops. With support from a couple lords, hope of more arriving if needed weighed on the mind of the castle lord. All fell quiet for the night, as the Great Shield would hold until morning. As the sun peeked through the trees and rose to its place in the sky, the nightly shield fell and left the castle exposed for the first time in 3 days. Troops readied their post as city folk continued their tasks. Hours passed with no sign of worry. The sun fell and the moon took its place. A quiet evening until a scout was seen quickly leaving the city. The horn sounded, and the city now on high alert. Messages were sent out to all neighboring lords within the Alliance. Will they reach them in time, the Lord thought? As day broke, word arrived back that the lords of the Alliance were ready with their best armies. Tensions were high within the city, not knowing what the next hour would bring. Another day had come and gone. Maybe the enemy feared the Lord now, or maybe they were waiting for the right time to strike. One more day came and went, then another and another. Resources started to run low, and reinforcements grew weary of why they were there. The calm morning was pierced by the shouting of guards walking the wall. Another scout found fleeing the castle and over the hillside. As the guards continued to keep their eye in the direction of the scout, battle flags crested the hill and the enemy had returned. It was a force greater than before, and they now were rushing towards the castle. Messengers were dispersed to the Alliance while the troops manned their posts. Ranks formed and the gates opened for golems to form up in the first line of protection. Infantry, cavalry, archers, and mages formed behind the golems and made ready for the force vastly approaching. There would be no shield to protect the castle this time. The enemy grew closer and closer with speed not seen before. Now, within mere feet, swords drew and the clash began. The force upon the golems was so great that within minutes the golems fell, leaving infantry next in the path. Cavalry clashed on both sides while infantry were tangled in between. Arrows rained down from both sides. Mages unleashed their brutal blows. Slowly, the enemy forces pushed deeper into the city's defensive lines. The castle lord looked down at the carnage, praying for more reinforcements. To his surprise, several dragons flew overhead, and both great pandas and Pegasus crested the hill and smashed into the enemy lines, followed by rows and rows of fellow Alliance marches. The tides of war had turned, and now the strength on both sides were close to equal. The front line strengthened with orc and human infantry, Archers and mages fought side by side, pushed back the advancing enemy. Blood soaked the soil. Great beasts delivered massive shots, and slowly the Lord continued to push the enemy lines back. Between the arrow-covered clouds, wings emerged. Wings not of a dragon, but of a man. Angels flew to the front lines behind the battered infantry and delivered massive hits to the enemy lines. The castle line strengthened, and with the angels' help, the enemy infantry fell. With angels pushing forward, archers and mages continued to trade attacks with the enemy. Cavalry dodged heavy attacks from enemy forces and charged forward side by side with the angels. As the carnage continued, the death count climbed higher and higher. Both sides now weakened to the point of no return. Retreat was not an option. As the enemy continued to force itself upon the front line, yet another Lord sent reinforcements, securing the castle and allowing the enemy to be overtaken. The enemy had nothing left and sounded the order of defeat. What was left of each enemy lord's army pulled back and slowly moved out of sight. The land was covered in bodies, blood soaked the soil, wounded lie in agony. The cost of battle proved too great for the enemy alliance, and no follow-up attacks arrived. It was over, for now. The wounded were retrieved and rushed to hospitals all over the alliance territory. The dead were carried back to their cities. Wandering souls found way to angels, for they will come to serve their Lord even after death. The great city castle wall was never breached. Her Lord was forever in debt to his alliance lords, which came to aid him in a time of great need. Resources were sent across the territories to help all alliance lords rebuild their military forces. For this was just the beginning of war, brought to the peaceful peoples of this alliance, an alliance which held strong to its values and camaraderie, now drug into a war in which the reasons were unknown. For now, and the foreseeable future, the alliance will be on high alert. The glimmer of great shields, the plans of great people, the strength of great armies. War is amongst us, and order will be secured.